Golden Black Live. It is one of the best parts about this show is we get living legends on the show. And I had him at 80 years old last time we talked, and he's still talking to me because he's not 80 yet. He's 79 years young. Coach Gene Keady needs no introduction. Welcome to the brave new world of the internet. Well, you've been on here before, but we can almost save anything. We can sit and drink beer maybe. Or maybe whiskey. I don't know. You want to do that?
My wife won't let me do that anymore.
you're in great shape, and you're up here for a weekend of activity. That's one thing. When your friends at Purdue come calling, everybody wants to see you, and we're thrilled that you're here.
Thank you.
Big weekend, though. Obviously, an emotional one, I would think, to some extent. It's the 20-year anniversary of the three-peat. And those three great teams, and your teams have a spot in Big Ten history as one of the only two teams in the history of Big Ten basketball to win 3 outright championships. What goes through your mind? It can't be 20 years ago. It's not possible, is it?
No, it doesn't seem like it. But those are years where you're really lucky to be part of it. You're happy to be part of it. You look back on it and think, how do we do that? You know, it's like the offensive team was the '94 team with Glenn Robinson and Zoe and those guys and Matt Waddell, and then the next team with Justin Jennings and Herb Dove and Porter Roberts and Brandon Brantley. Those guys were a defensive team,
yeah.
So we won the league because of the defense. And the third team, I don't know how we won it.
Yeah.
They were great guys that could take coaching.
Well, you know, it's funny because you're right. There were 3 distinctly different teams. I mean,
Yes.
Obviously the '94 team, which really, if you go back and look at it, had the hardest road, and really you didn't think you were going to win that thing until the last week in some ways. You know, you beat Michigan in one of the great games of all time, but just three completely different teams. I mean, when you have the big dog, you do things a little bit differently than you do when you don't have, when in '96, I think Herb Dove, you had 8 guys average between 5.5 points a game, which was Herb was on the bottom end. And Chad Austin was on the top end at 12. Have you ever had that kind of balance as a coach in all your years?
No.
Yeah.
And that's why I said that third time I took the trophy at Mackey Arena, I thought, when Jim Delaney gave me the trophy, I thought, how did we do that? It was like, and I looked back and looked at it and thought about it. I thought we had good balance and we had kids that were coachable. And I think the 2 years before that had taught these guys how to win. You know, they just got it. And they learn how to win on the road and how to fight through the Big Ten crowds and that sort of thing.
You know, you have that opportunity in '96 with that team. That I think you're right. There's a lot to that in terms of expecting to win, and you've had that in your program throughout your entire tenure. You had to build that. You know, for young coaches today, and the world is a little bit different. The era of the 25 years in one place may be hard to deal with. But what do you have to do what do you think when you built that foundation when you came to Purdue in your first years? When did you really think you had it so that you could replicate it year in and year out, or did you ever think you had it?
Well, you know, I always coach year to year.
Yeah.
I always operate on 1-year contracts, so I was always thinking I'd get fired at whatever job I had the next year, so I had to work hard to stay here. But when I took the job, I had Al McGuire come to Western Kentucky and talk to our clinic, and he told me, don't you take that job at Purdue, because Bob Knight's going to dominate that league forever. So you'd be really stupid to take that job. But it was the Big Ten, and Purdue had a great tradition, and I thought, you know, for me to go from a high school job in Beloit, Kansas, to a junior college, and then Eddie Sutton's assistant in Arkansas, then Western Kentucky, then Purdue was a pretty good jump. To go from a high school coach to Purdue was something I thought was special. So I took the job, taking the chance that I might be able to make it there. Yeah. And then when I got here, I had the 3 or 4 or 5 seniors that played for Lee Rose in the Final Four team. So they didn't know they didn't think I knew Sikkim.
Yeah.
And Kevin Stallings was one of those coaches. Now he's the coach at Vanderbilt, and he agreed with me that they didn't know that I knew anything. And he said he was wrong, but he was still admitted that those guys were not necessarily the best guys for me to break in with. And then we got another guy who was Mr. Basketball, and he didn't like me. So it was like hard to fight through, but the Purdue people tolerated me, and we luckily recruited Greg Eifert and Jim Rowinski and Kirk Clausen and Steve Reed and those kids, Ricky Hall, and then we built them into an '84 Big Ten championship team. And that George King then gave me a 3-year rollover contract, and I didn't even know what that was. So it was like, I was.
You didn't have your high-end agent coming in doing any debating.
No,
for
had
you.
no agent. Didn't operate that way. So it was just a special place for me.
Ed Kennedy was a good friend, though. He helped you out.
Oh yeah.
You know, that is what's one of the great stories of, because you had some strong personalities just starting out. I mean, Kevin being one of them. You had Roosevelt Barnes, who was a tough-minded guy and has got his son on the team now, and Caleb Swanigan. But and you had some guys that had some talent that would cause you. You didn't have gray hair then, but Keith Edmondson would keep you on balance.
Michael Scares,
Michael
Teddy Benson.
Yeah, some great guys that would test you from time to time. You go back, I want to take you through each year in 94, 95, and 96 in the three-peat championship, or the three-peat opportunity to win 3 consecutive championships. 94, with Glenn. And I don't, you have a team that starts out, I think you won your first 15 games, you go up to Wisconsin and lose, but this is a team that I think you lost at home to Michigan, but you go up to Michigan and you're down 7 points or so with about a minute and a half left. I don't know what you remember from that game.
I remember it.
But tell me what you do remember from really what probably, at least in my time of watching Purdue basketball, one of the greatest comebacks in the history of the program.
Well, we were lost to Illinois, if you remember, the week before, and we didn't put a guy on the out-of-bounds man. It was a close game, and they threw the ball to half court and threw it down, and we fouled them. They got 2 free throws. They beat us because we didn't put a pressure man up on the out-of-bounds man when they had to go full court and we had the lead. So we learned from that Michigan, same deal, same scenario a week later. So we put a guy up on the out-of-bounds man, and then we were smart enough to get the ball to Glenn for the last shot, and he sunk it to beat him in a last-second shot.
So, he didn't travel, did he, in your mind?
I don't know.
Don't worry about those things. That's right. So he didn't travel.
Not.
Glenn Robinson never traveled.
Well, I don't know about that.
Yeah, maybe
he didn't get called for it that time.
No, what an unbelievable win up in Michigan. You come back and win the championship outright. His last game, what was going to be his last game, 49 points against Illinois. What do you remember? I mean, one of the great offensive performances. All I remember, and this is terrible, is I remember him missing 2 free throws where he'd had 50 at the end. But he was just unbelievable that day, and that obviously sealed that first outright Big Ten championship against the Fighting Illini.
Well, and Konzo had a good game.
Yeah.
He was great that game. We had got good players on that team. They were balanced. Matt Waddell was good. Link Darner, Matt Painter. So we had some good balance.
Yeah, and you have a guy like Glenn, and how much is most of your teams at Purdue, you had obviously some great individual players, but they formed well as a team. Glenn, you had to change. Looking back at it, did you change your philosophy much for him because you knew you had somebody that could do things that nobody else could do at that level? How did you incorporate him into what you needed done, or is it just an obvious thing to do? This we had to lead it with this guy.
Well, I think it was more that our players understood they needed to give him the ball a lot. It wasn't you took a genius to figure out that this guy's got to have the ball in his hand biggest percent of the time. So it was more about our players understanding that we need to get the ball again because he could really shoot. He was one of our best practice players, in my opinion. So we just learned how to do that. So because I was a fast break coach coming up through high school and junior college, and then I went with Eddie Sutton at Arkansas. We were more of a controlled defensive team. I learned how to play defense through Eddie Sutton. So because of my offense in my early years of coaching and Eddie Sutton helping me kind of balance my system, and then Tex Winter helped me with some of the things he taught me at K-State when we just watched him. He didn't coach me because I didn't play for him.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of good mentors at Sam Butterfield, at Hutch JUCO. So I had a lot of people that helped me, and I could incorporate my philosophy. So that first year, you asked about the Glenn Robinson year, where we wanted to get him the ball because the guys at Michigan told him, don't go to Purdue because the coach is just going to put you low post, and he's not going to let you operate. Well, we were a little bit smarter than that, so we needed to get him the ball to face the basket and let him use his skills of making jumpers and taking the ball to the hoop and stuff, because he was not selfish, so he would distribute the ball. And we got him incorporated in our passing game where he could make something happen with his fluid, all-around ability.
The Gene Keady I know and watched coach for many, many years. You come at it pretty much honestly with respect to punishment, or if you have guys that you got to discipline on a team. Did you ever have to make an example out of Gene, or did you out of Glenn, or did you ever have that? I mean, did you ever boot him out of practice, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, Glenn was not he was a really good practice player, as I said, but when you got after him, he listened and then would try to get it corrected. He was not a guy that would held it against you or took it personal, and you could chew him out and he wouldn't be mad at you. So it was like one day he did something in the dorm and it wasn't what I would call PR correct for Purdue basketball
Yeah.
players, because I was always very strict on guys behaving right. And he was acting like a jerk on the phone, and I heard about it from the dorm counselors, and I brought him in the next day in front of the players and said, why don't you go to the NBA now, because I'm sick of you. And the players looked at me like, you crazy, coach? You're going to run him off. We need him to stay here. So it's like, and then he didn't do anything again, so he was great. And then one day in practice, I said, Glenn, you need to start rebounding in practice because you're not getting many rebounds as you should because you're a better player than this. And nobody got a rebound the rest of the practice. So he just dominated it. So he was a guy that was coachable, and he would listen and never took stuff personal like a lot of players did.
And he was something to watch. But yet, equally, in '95, and one of my all-time favorite players that produced Conzo Martin, one of my all-time favorite people.
Yes, he is.
You can't get better. Did you, when you first recruited him, and there was he had his knee issues and all of that. Did you ever get the sense right away that he would be, a high Division I level coach?
No.
Where
Denny Miller, one of my favorite trainers
Yeah.
of all time, told me when Conzo got here, Coach, he probably won't play here. I said, what? I said, he's highly recruited. What are you talking about? He said, he's got bone-on-bone
Yeah,
knees.
yeah.
He said, he's not going to play here. But they didn't know Conzo Martin.
Yeah.
He went up in the stadium stairs and ran him on his own without people making him. He lifted weights. He took stuff to make him stronger. So as far as, using the weights right. So it was like this guy could get himself ready to play, and he did. And when he was a sophomore, I think he was 0 for 6 from the three-point
Yeah.
line. And then he was a junior, he made 42 three-pointers. So it was
unbelievable.
He just turned his whole shooting game around.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the great leaders as well, along with Matt Waddell in '95.
Yep.
In that team, Judd's last year, your close friend, his last year, and everybody said he was a sentimental favorite, and you ruined his year because you guys won the Big Ten championship, and he didn't get to win his last year.
Well, he ruined our year in what, 90?
Yes, he did.
By-
1990 with Tony
they
Jones.
beat us up there with, they stole the ball from Tony, and
Yeah.
the referees, he
Bad
fouled
call.
the heck out of it. And Judd admitted it in the press conference after we fouled him to get the ball, and they let us do it. And they just robbed us. So it was like one of those things that happened.
Turnabout. Yeah, it was
The
fair.
next week, I think we went to NCAA, or
Yeah.
maybe 2 weeks after that, and we got beat by Texas, and I got fined $10,000 for acting like an idiot.
I was with you that time. We knew, yes, you would. You did act like it. We couldn't tell you. I knew we were in trouble with that because I could actually walked you down to that press conference and was working with Jim Vrujink and the guys at SID, and I knew that something was percolating. But
Well,
you could
what
never
happened
tell.
was you remember we lost at Iowa.
Yeah.
Our last second
Yeah.
play, the guy threw it off the back
Yeah.
of one of our guys,
Yeah.
got it, put it in the hole,
Yeah.
and they beat us at the buzzer.
Yeah.
And then we go to Michigan State, and they beat us on
Yeah.
a rob call by the referee. So
You'd had enough.
it wasn't about my coaching; it was about the bad referees,
Yeah.
which is not true. But it's like I'd had enough, and I was fed up. And they go to play Texas, which we were happy about because we were close, and we the fans could go to the
Yeah.
games, and we thought it'd be a great edge for us, and it wasn't. We took 6 charges at games, and they didn't call any of them.
Yeah.
So I just went berserk at the press conference, and then I had to go to Denver the next week and appear in front of the discipline committee to tell why I acted like I did. And I said, well, my wife, Pat, usually walked with me after a game that was close or I was acting like a jerk, and she would calm me down and not go into the press conference and be an idiot. And she wasn't there. She was with her friend, and they went to the restroom, and they didn't see me after the game, and I went back there, and I was still hotter than the
Oh, yeah, you
collar.
were.
So, and I went off on saying, it all makes you makes you want to cheat, because a lot of people now are cheating, and I just went off on everybody, and
Apparently,
I was an idiot.
your crack SID staff did not calm you at all during that, which I didn't. I wasn't going to get in your way.
It wasn't
That's all I
your fault.
remember.
It was all me.
All
It
right.
was my fault.
No, I'm not
And I
taking.
deserved the fine, and you know what happened, though? What was good about the discipline committee in Denver was, they said, Coach, how can we change this? I said, well, usually you have the losing coach go first,
Yeah.
and the winning coach go second. And I said, maybe you ought to have the winning coach go first, so the losing coach might cool down and change that trend of, by the NCAA rules, to let the guy that wins goes first, because he's won and he wants to get out of there, go with his family and with his players. And they said, that's a good idea. So the
I think they changed it.
So the next time they changed it to the winning coach goes first and losing coach goes second, so he can cool down. And And
That's the
help them
Ca-
change the rule, it might help some other
That's called the Katie cool down
people.
rule, and
I
that's a
hope
good thing.
I hope it helps somebody.
That's a legacy.
Didn't
All right,
help
we're-
me any, but it helped them.
We're going to take a short break, come back and talk about Gene Keady, the brand, and what some of the fun things that you have going with the Gene Keady Play Hard and the T-shirts, but also the fact that you're going to have a big date also with your old friend and coach and competitor, Coach Bob Knight, too, next week at the Purdue Ag Alumni Fish Fry. So we'll hit that and all in the next segment on Gold and Black Live. Stay tuned, and we'll see you in a couple of minutes.